Hi, so welcome back to the show. This is Michael Ellis Show. I'm your host, Michael, and today we've got Brian on the show. Now, Brian's an expert at cybersecurity. And so, how are you today, Brian?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. Working away. It's every morning after I drop my son off at kindergarten. I basically have to field all the calls from my clients telling me what's gone wrong in their worlds. So today actually was pretty decent. I like Fridays. I like Fridays. Everyone's a little bit more relaxed, and my only big problem this morning was one of my clients. They have unreliable internet, and their internet went down. So everyone who's trying to work from home, connecting to their services back in the office, couldn't work. So I had to make a little bit of a rush there, but that wasn't too difficult to solve. So yeah, it's been a good day.
Awesome. And so, now, cybersecurity for entrepreneurs. Um,
Yes.
why is it important, Brian? Because a lot of people, well, a lot of entrepreneurs don't take cybersecurity very serious. So, why is it important, first of all?
Well, I mean, basically, especially since COVID-19, I mean, hacking has been on the rise for years, and really particularly since 2017. And you hear in the news about hospitals and schools and governments and things like that getting hacked, but what you don't hear about is the everyday person who's losing everything to their business. Every once in a while, you hear like there was a woman who went live and said that like an ex VA who was vengeful deleted her YouTube channel with 75,000 subscribers. Um, you hear stories about that all the time with insider stuff, but hackers as well are going in, and ransomware is on the massive rise. You say, oh well, I don't know anyone it's happened to, but last year the Ponemon Institute reported 851 million incidences of ransomware. So close to a billion out of seven. So that's almost 1 in 7 people on the planet who was affected in some way by ransomware. And the trick is for entrepreneurs is that everyone is a target. They're not just looking for the big company or the big money. Like they can get money out of anyone, and if they get into your data, they can really destroy your business. They can ruin your reputation. They can steal your business. They can redirect your business somewhere. And for entrepreneurs, if you're just starting out, sure, maybe you think, okay, it doesn't matter. But the thing is, as you start to build your audience and as you start to gain notoriety, you become more of a target. And it's a lot easier to set up your house properly from the start than it is to recover when someone burns it down, or or then it's very easy to live in the house once you set things up correctly, basically. So you hear about hacks all the time, and a lot of them come from things like credential stuffing, for instance, which is not the tasty stuff you get in your turkey at Thanksgiving, but rather, if you remember Disney Plus, for instance, Disney Plus, within about 3 weeks of Disney Plus launching, they announced that 10,000 accounts had been hacked. Well, that wasn't that wasn't really true. What happened was that 10,000 people basically used the same password on Disney Plus that they used for my favorite domain, bobscomfydoggybeds.com. And so when bobscomfydoggybeds.com gets hacked, well, guess what? That goes on the dark web, and someone gets that email address and their password. And what do you think the first thing they do when they get an email address linked with a password is? They try it on everything. They try it on Amazon. They try it on PayPal. They try it on Disney Plus. They try it on Netflix. They try it on everything they can think of, right? And so there a lot of entrepreneurs are using the same password for every website they have. And what you have to keep in mind is that basically, if any one of those websites gets hacked, every single one of your websites is hacked.
So that basically covers that you should um, have a different password for everything that you use.
Yes. Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
that's essentially step one to securing yourself, because that's probably the easiest one out of the lot that you can sort out. Just
Yes.
before we go any further with cybersecurity, do you want to just let the audience know who you are and how you got into the field that you're in today, and how you and why you've decided to help entrepreneurs in particular.
So, well, my name is Brian Menzel. I have owned a managed IT services company for the last 15 years. My main vertical is companies in the financial services industry who have very large privacy and regulatory requirements on them. So for them, cybersecurity is very, very important. and and because of that, I have been exposed, and I stay up on the world of cybersecurity, and I have seen how bad it is getting. And so what happened was, when I wanted to sort of start to grow my business, I joined a group of other MSP owners, and I got introduced through that to ClickFunnels through the One Funnel Away challenge. And what happened was, I got into One Funnel Away challenge to learn about marketing, which I didn't know a whole lot about, um, but then I was looking at the questions that people were asking in the One Funnel Away challenge, and all I could think was, oh my God, if you don't know this about technology, then I'm guessing you do not have any type of security on your operation. And as you drive your entire life and business online, you there's a good possibility that you're going to get eaten alive by a hacker someday. And so I made it my mission to try to prevent that, because uh, if 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 you ever talk to someone who has been hacked, it's just about the worst thing that can happen to you. Because the problem is that when people get into your accounts, like your Facebooks, things like that, what they do is they change things like recovery addresses. They and basically you get to the point where you are unable to legitimately prove that you're you to these companies, because they go, well, this isn't the email address we have on file, so we'll send the password recovery to this email. And um, in that time, in that time, they can send out whatever they want to all of your friends and all of your contacts, and depending what kind of business that you have, I mean, that can severely harm your reputation. I mean, when we talk about companies, the numbers are that basically 40% of 40% of consumers say that they would consider stopping doing business with a company if they learned that they had been the victims of a cyber attack, that or a breach. So so reputationally, getting hacked is a nightmare. Not to mention the heartache of trying to recover from something like that. And the answer is, it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple to make yourself more or less hack proof. I mean, if you have a nation state actor who's targeting you, okay, I guarantee, like you could do your best, but they might get in. But that's unlikely to be what's actually happening, or where most entrepreneurs are going to get caught, right? So with entrepreneurs, and with especially with single people who are just trying to protect themselves, I liken cybersecurity to running away from a bear, right? If you're running away from a bear, you don't actually have to be faster than the bear, but you just have to be faster than the person next to you. And that's sort of the way it is. If you present even a moderate obstacle to hackers, they will likely, as soon as they encounter the wall, they'll, instead of climbing over it, they'll just go and look for a different person to hack, right? So, and for most entrepreneurs, the problem is they just don't know where to get started. So that's what I'm trying to solve.
That's awesome. So you chose and you made it your mission because you entered the One Funnel Away challenge for marketing purposes and realized that there's a gap in knowledge out there on this stuff. I mean, you've talked a lot about the potential problems that can arise, but what are some of the other ways that hackers can get in without necessarily just the breach of passwords throughout the whole entire web, if you like?
So they
What
can.
what are the some of the stuff that you cover with your clients, basically?
So with my clients, I'm throwing up massive firewalls in front of their operation. Managed antivirus, DNS filtering, things like that. I mean, that's a little bit beyond. If you're just a single person, the kind of protection I put up in front of a corporate client is a lot
A
higher
lot.
than I would expect from an individual.
And
But
so, what
yeah,
would you expect from an individual purpose?
well, my my pillars of cybersecurity are basically password management, two-factor authentication, antivirus, and backup. Those are my four pillars. And if you build four strong pillars there, you've presented um, a pretty big wall to a hacker.
So, just going with the first one, passwords.
Yep.
Now, there's a reason why everybody uses the same password for everything, and that's because we have 1,000, 100,000 passwords that we need to manage
Yep.
or remember. So, how does one manage to be able to cope with that level amount of um, passwords that they need to remember? I mean, what do you recommend people do to store passwords? Because essentially, what you to have a different password for every single website, you're going to need to store them somewhere.
Yep. So definitely, I recommend using a password manager. Now, my personal recommendation is 1Password, but I'm fine if you want to use Dashlane, LastPass, whatever. Just the one thing I don't recommend people do is do not store your passwords in your browser. Do not store them in Chrome. Do not store them in Safari. Do not store them in Firefox. That kind of thing. Those browsers basically store their stuff in plain text, and it's if anybody gets something onto your computer, they're very, very easy to hack. So use a proper password manager. Um, I know a lot of people like LastPass. LastPass just announced that a lot of people like LastPass because it's free. But LastPass just announced that their free one will now only work on one device. So the great thing is now you use your password manager, and the big thing you do with a password manager, right, is you generate unique gibberish 20 character passwords. Well, so now you've got LastPass on your phone, and now every time you try to log on to something on your computer, you got to look on your phone and type out a 20 character gibberish password because you can't use LastPass anymore. I'm like, oh, anyway. So that's why I recommend 1Password. Also, it's got a better security history than LastPass does, and they've got some awesome integrations. Like they integrate with Have I Been Pwned, which is Troy Hunt's database of that he maintains of breached usernames and passwords. And so if one of your passwords shows up on Pastebin in a hack, they will 1Password will automatically be like, oh, by the way, this password has been compromised. You're going to want to change that right away. And without having to look in the news to find out or get an email from the company to find out that they've been breached, because companies don't always report their breaches until, say, 3 months after it happens because of the reputational damage, and they want to be able to say they've managed it and handled it and blah 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 blah. But in those 3 months, guess how many people got hacked in those 3 months, right? So with Have I Been Pwned, as soon as your password and username show up in a breach database that he uploads, 1Password will tell you that your password's been compromised, and you're going to want to change that.
Well, that's extremely useful.
Yeah.
So, is this something that's very simple to do across the board? And so, if across your, did you say it were 4 pillars? It were 4 pillars, wasn't it?
Yeah. 4 pillars. Yeah.
So,
Uh,
is it pretty simple for an individual to be able to do on their own without any external help, or is it something that's quite difficult and you need some sort of course or guide to get you through it?
I think the answer to that depends on who you are. For some people, like for me, it was pretty simple. But for somebody who's using the same password for everything because they're not a fan of technology, no, I wouldn't say it's particular. I mean, the password managers try to make it as easy as possible, but like for instance, I got my mother to use one password, and basically every 3 days she calls me and tells me she's locked herself out of the bank again. um, and and I, and she locked herself out of my Hack Proof Me course, so she couldn't get in to figure out what she'd done. Anyway, but yeah, for some people it'll be easy, but for some people absolutely not, because there's people who don't even know how you go about changing your password in a site. You know, so they just signed up once for the site, they put in their password, they've never changed it, and so some people can't even figure out, well, if I had to change my password, where do I go, how do I do it, right? Let alone how do I generate a strong password and then store it properly for that site. um, so it's it's not it's not difficult, if especially if you have a set of instructions. once you've done it Once you've done it 5 or 6 times, and because most people have 50, 60, 100 passwords, once you've changed your password in a couple of places and you've figured out how your password manager works, it's sort of like muscle memory. You can probably continue from there. But there are sites that just do weird things, like the normal way that you would change the password, where your password manager automatically generates a password and saves it and all that. That some sites, they have the coding issues, or they security coding that prevents that from happening. And then and then that's where people get lost. They're like, oh my god, the password manager didn't just automatically generate a password and save it for me, and now I can't get into my thing. But all of that is recoverable. You're never out of luck. But again, for password management, the big thing for entrepreneurs tends to be overwhelm, because it's a lot. Like, you've got 100 sites that you've got to go in and change the passwords for, right? And so if you don't have a framework that you can say methodically how to go about changing those passwords, it's like analysis paralysis, right? You just go, oh, forget it. I'm just never going to get hacked. Forget it. This is too much work. I'm never going to get hacked. And then they go about, and until they do get hacked, and then they wish more than anything else that they'd just gone and followed the advice that they've been given, months ago. So
And that's sort of like the problem with all this, isn't it? Like, it definitely would be extremely overwhelming knowing that you've got all these websites that you potentially need to change passwords for, or
yeah,
close down, depending on which one you want to do, because you might as well choose whether if you need to keep that account open or not,
yeah.
whilst you're going through it, aren't you?
But I mean, there's a methodology to it, right? Like, okay, so like if we go back to the domains I talked about, right? So if you have a password that you use on bobscomfydoggybeds.com, well, you don't want that to be the same as your bank password. So where do you start when you start changing passwords? Well, you change the important ones first, right? And then the sites that don't matter, well, it would be great to get to them, because again, for every site that you're using the same password for, as soon as hacked, they're all hacked. Um, Again, if someone is able to get into your bobscomfydoggybeds.com site, well, that might not be a huge deal. Like, how much damage can they do to you ordering dog pillows, right? Well, I guess they could. Anyway, they could order a lot of dog pillows, and they would cost you a lot, but then somebody's going to be getting hundreds of dog pillows, and who wants that, right? So um, there is a methodology for it, and that's part of what I teach, is how to manage that overwhelm, and get yourself to a place where I like to say that I can take anyone and make them basically a billion times more secure. And that's based on the statistics of, people who are using bad passwords. If they start using better passwords, and they start using two-factor authentication, and they start backing up their stuff with encryption so the government can't read it, and they get a proper antivirus, the statistics say that literally you're about a billion times more secure than the average bear. So
So just quickly, on what you just said there is why would you need to encrypt your stuff so then the government can't read it?
Well, it's not. It's. I mean, most people won't. So I don't. I say so the government can't read it because I just don't trust the U.S. government. I mean, I'm in Canada, so But the reason why you encrypt your backups is because it's basically. Well, the answer is why not? Why wouldn't you? Right? Why wouldn't you want to know that your backup because backups, I mean, you can take a backup and you can put it on your USB drive, and you can swap that out, and if you unplug your USB drive and it sits on your desk at home, that's pretty good. But then the question is, do you ever test your backups? Do you know that, especially if you backed up something 7 years ago, do you know that when you plug that USB drive in, when you get to a point where it's failed, that it's actually going to work and you're going to be able to get your stuff back? Most people don't. Most people don't go through and test that. So it's a lot easier to just have something automatically backing up to the cloud. But in the cloud again, it's on somebody else's servers. So my opinion is that because using a good backup service will let you choose an encryption password, and then you'll never need to think about it until you need to do a restore. But you're going to put your encryption password in your password manager anyway. So what's the problem? Like, if you encrypt your backups, the idea is that if anybody breaches your backup provider, your data is unreadable to them, is unusable to them. They can steal the encrypted data. They can't do anything with it. And a good backup provider will use something called AES 256 encryption. That's sort of the current standard for strong encryption. And the reason for that is that it's considered quantum proof. One of the big stories out right now is that, oh my God, quantum computers are coming, and when that happens, all these things that were previously unhackable are going to be child's play for quantum computers. But AES 256 encryption is considered quantum proof in that, increasing the speed of computation, which quantum computers does not simplify the problem down enough to make it easy to crack, basically. And I don't want to get too technical, but anyways, basically they use encryption. They use encryption that is basically unhackable.
Yeah, let's not go too technical.
Yeah.
Because when you're starting to talk about quantum computers and stuff like that, although I know quite a bit on technology, and then it's starting to go over my head. It's like,
Yeah,
talking.
just basically imagine this. Basically, one of the ways that people crack passwords is by just basically they download the encrypted version of your password, and then they just run a program which just guesses, and it can guess like millions of times a second what your password is until it figures it out. And so with strong enough passwords, they'll have to take, trillions or quadrillions of guesses, which even at the rate that they can guess, will take them a very long time. The idea with quantum computers is that instead of doing a million guesses a second, they'll be able to do like a billion or a trillion guesses a second. And so if the answer was that at a million guesses a second, it was going to take 300 years, at a trillion guesses a second, it's only going to take like a couple days, sort of thing. So that's why when we talk about quantum computers, I mean, all you have to understand is that they're much faster at guessing, basically.
Yeah, basically, essentially.
Yeah.
They're much faster at processing information, basically.
Yeah.
So, in a ideal world, what would you like to happen with your mission of helping entrepreneurs?
In an ideal world, I would like to put hackers out of business. Basically, I would like to get so many entrepreneurs. Oh, I am really sorry. Give me just a second. My lunch restaurant is calling me. There's something. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry. So, guys, just quickly, if you want to visit Brian, and you want to, how can I put it? If you want to, basically, the link to Brian's Facebook profile is below in the description or on the show notes if you are listening on the podcast. just bear with us just a quick second or two whilst Brian gets back to us. He's just received an important phone call that he's had to take, and we'll be back in a moment or two. Please just bear with us. But you got to understand that it's extremely important for cybersecurity for entrepreneurs, because your life is tied up in computers, and your ability to be able to earn money is tied up through computers. All it takes is one hacker to get in there, do his tricks, do his dirty work, and all of a sudden, like Brian says, your reputation could be at odds. They could wipe you of your money. They could wipe you of your influence and your reputation online. They could do a hell of a lot of things, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of what they could do. They could lock you out of your accounts, and it could be bad news for a lot of you. So Brian is now back with us.
Yes, sorry about that. I forgot to put a tip for the driver for my lunch delivery. So I was like, oh, they're calling. I'm like, I'm guessing they're not sending my food till I do that. So I'm so sorry, guys.
No, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. So I just tried to fill it up as much as I possibly
Oh,
could.
thanks, Michael.
So yeah, we were talking about, in an ideal world, you'd like to put hackers out of business.
Yeah.
So obviously, basically what you're saying there is, because there's so much low hanging fruit out there, that there's a lot of naughty people out there, a lot of hackers out there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, cybercrime is close to $1 trillion a year industry. And it's and right now, like, so so in the past you'd have to have a coder who would write ransomware and figure out how to run the program. But then what the hackers did is they discovered that, and they basically learned about marketing, right? Because now what they do instead is, when they have a very successful piece of ransomware, they basically set it up and they sell it as a software as a service, or ransomware in a box. And so now they go to any little cyber criminal and say, hey, do you want to start ransoming people? Here we go. We'll give you the software. We'll sell you the software that you can use, and you can send out and blast out on an email list, and hope people click on the link and get your ransomware, and then you can start collecting money. Like, they're selling ransomware as a service. So now anybody can get into the game.
that's crazy. But not, yeah, like, so is there a problem with fake sites as well? In terms of sites that are designed to actually steal your passwords, and then,
Of course, phishing is probably one of the number one ways. Yeah.
Is that why it's called phishing?
Yeah, it's phishing with a ph. Yeah, that's basically the idea is that you put up a fake site that replicates a real site, and you get people to put their credentials into it, at which point you're getting people to just give you their credentials. And that happens a lot.
So I didn't actually mean that. What I meant by that, it's like, for somebody to actually create using the marketing technique again, for somebody to actually create a website, essentially that would need a password, and then hoping that they use the same password for everything.
Yeah, but more often than not, I mean, yes, they do that, but more often than not, they're trying to create sites that look like PayPal, or look like Stripe, or look like Microsoft Office, or look like Amazon, or look like, these sites that, like, if they get into those sites, they can actually do some damage. Well, I mean, and with cyber criminals, you have to remember that for them, it's not personal, right? It's a business. Yeah. Right? They're not really out to get you. They're out to make money. And so what they're going to try to get into anything that will allow them to make money.
Mm-hmm. Understandable. So where can people go to learn more and be be in your world, Brian? Because
Yeah.
you do have a course called Hack Me Proof, is it?
Hack proof me. Yeah.
Hack Proof Me.
So
Um, is that available to purchase right now, or is it still? I mean, I know you were undergoing some changes, so is that
yeah,
available
it,
to
it
purchase now?
it is. It is. Right now I'm busy migrating the actual course content. So I haven't been actively promoting it as much recently because what I'm dreading is that when I actually get the course, then I've got to basically move everyone who's bought over to a new course platform, and that's a little bit of a nightmare. So I'm sort of like, okay, I've got to get that done, and then I'll start actively promoting. But no, it works. Uh,
It works.
and
Well, listen,
I also have my group, which is also called Hack Proof Me, protection,
that
privacy, and peace of mind.
that's a Facebook group, yeah.
That's a Facebook group. That's a free group that I run where I talk about cybersecurity and post about threats and things you can do to protect yourself. Um, but yeah, my my big my big course is hackproofme.com.
So that, that that's what I was trying to get at. So it's
Yeah.
hackproofme.com.
Yep.
Um, if you want to go ahead and go check out Brian's course, like I said, he is transitioning over from one course provider to another course provider, which does mean that that's some work. I mean, it is some work for you to do, Brian, in it.
Yeah.
Um, and like I can legitimately say I can understand your concerns with moving a course over from one provider to another provider, because you've got to make sure all your members still have access
Yeah.
when when you change it over, which is
That's
the
the
difficult
exactly.
process.
Yeah.
Um, so you, by all means, though, guys, don't let that put you off. Go over, check it out, and maybe by the time you come to this, it might have already changed the course provider anyway. Um,
Yeah. I'm hoping to do that in the next couple of weeks. Uh, with the kids being out of school and trying to run my business and homeschool for the last two
it's
months.
difficult, isn't it? It's
It's
really difficult.
I'm like there's never enough time, and then I still try to maintain a decent work life balance. So I don't I just don't work all the time because I feel like I want to spend time with my wife and with my son, and I know that from a business perspective, that's not the best. But I've always, as I've run my business, thought that work-life balance is very important. So I respect that, and I try to manage that, and that leaves me with very little free time. So
Very little spare time
spare time, yeah,
to do these things that is going to actually take up quite a fair bit of time.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I understand your pains and struggles with that. But if failing that, guys, if you search up Hack Proof Me on Facebook, you will come across Brian's group as well, and you can join in there. Um, and I should imagine that when you have transferred your course provider over, you will announce it in your Facebook group anyway.
yes, absolutely,
Um,
yeah,
so if you are concerned about that, then head over to his Facebook group, and then you will get an announcement.
yeah. And I mean, with transitioning the course provider, I mean, for the people who buy my course, it's not a problem for them that I'm changing providers. It's a problem for me because I've got
Yes,
to do all the work to
yeah,
get you moved over, right? It's not a problem for you. You just buy the course and you go. But
yeah. It's
um,
not a problem,
but
I
absolutely, like, yeah,
yeah.
I can understand how people how you're like, oh, I don't want to have to move course providers. So I totally get it. But right now, my free group, if you are concerned and you about your privacy, your kids' privacy, your personal security, uh, there is the group which will have me basically trying to give everything I can to help keep you safe as well.
That's awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, Brian.
Listen,
Um,
thank you, Michael. Sorry about the lunch interruption.
it's absolutely fine. And like I said, guys, if you want to check out Brian's course, it's hackproofme.com. and his Facebook Facebook group is the exact same. Hack Proof Me on Facebook. Just search it up. I'm pretty sure it'll come up.
I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything like it. If you just type "hack proof me" all one word, I think it's the only group. But mine happens to be called "Hack Proof Me Protection, Privacy, Peace of Mind" or something like that. But
and if you have any issues at all trying to find it on Facebook, there is a link in the description and in the show notes to Brian's Facebook profile, and you can send him a message there, and I'm sure he can help you out.
Absolutely, I love talking. I love talking to people.
So, like I said, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you guys for watching at home, and thank you for listening on the podcast. And I will see you next time.